Hey guys, it's Derp Wiggly's here. This is more of a very specific video. This video is kind of for all the newer companies that are about to start getting into wars. This is for people who do shot calling and rostering. It's a really small subset of people, but I kind of wanted to go over how the basics of war rostering looks, um, and how to roster an army. Uh, for anybody who's interested in shot calling or interested in how wars are done at the top level by the governors and the people that do all the rosters and how all of this stuff kind of gets established, I'm going to do a series of videos about rostering. So this video is the video about rostering, and then I'm going to have a video about tactics and strategy. So once you have the roster set, how do you actually use it? And then I'm going to do a video about the different phases of war and different strategies that are specific for point phase and specific for fort phase. So there's going to be the rostering, the general strategy, and then I'm going to do two videos that are like laser focused on point phase and fort phase. But let's just get right into this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the New Worlds content. Leave some comments below for what kind of videos you would like to see. But yeah, let's get right into it. So first things first, you want to make sure that you have enough frontline and you have enough healers, right? So about, anywhere from half to 3/4 of your army should be frontline and healers. Really, you only need about anywhere from like 5 to 15 people that aren't frontline or healer. What I mean by that is frontline is usually bruiser, or you have tanks. Tanks can be any kind of any number of class. It could be heavy bruiser. It could be sword shield plus great sword. It can be ice gauntlet blunderbuss. It could be void gauntlet blunderbuss. It doesn't really matter as long as it's in heavy. I've seen heavy void gauntlet, ice gauntlet. So those guys are all tanks, right? Those are all just classified as tanks. And then you have your standard bruiser, which is great axe, warhammer, and then you have in medium armor, and everybody else should be basically if you're not a healer or on a kill team, you should probably be in medium armor. If you're a tank, you should be in heavy. And the way it's kind of set up is you have your front line that, here's their point. You're going for B. You have your front line pushing up, and then I'll have that be red or blue. Then you have your back line, right, which is your healers and your mages or your bows or whatever. I'll have that be red. So you have your front line, then you have your back line. So, and then support players play kind of in the middle of these two, and I'll have that be green, right? So you have your support players in the middle, your front line, and then your back line. So that's kind of how, it's not exactly how it's set up. You don't want to block up like that, but that's how it ends up kind of forming up. And you want to have enough frontline players so that their bruisers and their ice gauntlet, void gauntlets, and their blunderbuss users don't get to your backline, right? So you have about 15 to 25 frontline. 25 is a little much. And by frontline, tanks, bruisers is mainly your frontline. Support, we're seeing a little bit less ice gauntlet, void gauntlet as support, but you want at least 5 to 10. I would say closer to 10. 10 support. DPS is anything like bows and muskets, your AoE pad, fire staffs, stuff like that. Anything that's high DPS. You have melee DPS that a lot of people are using on Kill Squad right now. So it can be ranged DPS, it can be melee DPS, but you usually want, 0 to 10. I would say minimum probably like 5, really. 5 to 6. And then you want at least 10 to 15 healers. So you want at least 10 to 15 healers. Sorry about my cat. I don't know if you can hear, but my cat is whining. So 10 to 15 healers. So you want a group healer in every group, minimum. So at least 9 to 10 group healers. So this can be taken away, right? This is if you're kind of building standard teams and you're putting your AoE teams in your point groups. This can be taken away, and you could even put all 3 of these AoE healers in this harass team and make these into just more main ball groups, but that's a little bit more, it's a little bit different. So I'll kind of go over the standard, what I consider the standard setup. So for point groups, anybody that's going to be kind of fighting on point, so this is attacking wars, this is used very heavily. You have 1 to 3 dedicated point teams, right? So these are the players, you have at least 5 people whose entire job is to get on a point, stay on point, fight on point, kill everybody who's on point. Your job is to live there, don't die, do as much damage as possible while you can, but your main job is to kind of just stay alive and hang out and make sure that the point either ticks or doesn't tick. Your job is to capture the flag, essentially. Be the king of the hill. So you can have anywhere from 1 to 3, and this is just basically tanks. So in this point tank group example, I have 3 tanks, an AoE healer, and what I mean by AoE healer is they run Beacon, Orb of Protection, and Sacred Ground as their 3 skills. I have a build for AoE heals. I'll link it in the description. And then I have group healers, which can either be double single target, it can be hybrid, or you can even use splash. I like hybrid healers, which is Orb or Beacon plus Sacred Ground, and then you have Divine Embrace. So that's group healer. If you have somebody who can do double single target with Life Embrace and Divine Embrace with Sacred Ground, and they're actually really good at it, put them in, because then you'll have AoE and you'll have double single target, and they'll be able to keep your point tanks alive really, like basically forever. But hybrid healing is usually the easiest way to go with Orb or Beacon, and then Sacred Ground and Divine Embrace. I like to run a group with 3 heavy blunderbuss, and what I'll do is I'll have like a heavy SNS blunderbuss. That's what I'll play, and then I'll have a VG plus blunderbuss, and then either a great sword / ice gauntlet plus blunderbuss. So it doesn't really matter how you set that up. You don't even really need to have this group. You want at least just one group with three tanks. So that group can be this group. It could be heavy bruisers. It could be whatever you have that are good and heavy. Don't focus on, when you're building a roster, don't focus on copying this exact layout and filling these things out with exactly what I have here. The best thing that you can do for your team is to get good people into positions where they will be successful. So say you have somebody who loves to play heavy bruiser, and you don't have anybody that plays Sword and Shield Blunderbuss, then make this a heavy bruiser, right? Put that person in as a heavy bruiser, because they're going to be better with the weapons that they've been practicing with for the entire game than you forcing them to switch roles just to fit a roster that some dude told you works on the internet, right? It's easy for me to say, hey, this setup works really well for us because, we're getting into fort in under 10 minutes in basically all of the last wars that we've been in. But we're also putting people who are successful in roles that they're good at, right? So we have people that are really good bows playing the bow. We have people that are really good muskets playing the musket. So, and on attack wars, we'll still throw in one or two or three muskets because we have three really good musket players, and to not use them would be handicapping ourselves, especially if we replace them with like a mediocre bruiser or something that might beef up our front line a little bit better, but the average skill level of our army goes down, right? You want the most skilled players in the positions that they play the best while trying to adhere to some kind of form that will actually work, right? Because you can't win a war with all ranged. If there's nobody to get on point, you can't take a point. So you want to kind of stick to something like this as much as possible while putting people in positions where they can succeed. So really, point teams are really just all tanks of some kind. What I'll do is, like I said, I'll have my team. I think is actually exactly like that. It's me, and then a heavy void gauntlet plus blunderbuss, and then a heavy bruiser is my team. So that's my team, and then we have a lot of the times I'll just replace this group, these two groups, with main ball because we don't have a lot of people who like to play heavy because there's not a lot of kill potential, and people like playing killers. So I'll just have 1 point tank, and we'll have, and that's the team that I run. We'll have 1 point team, and it looks something like this, and then we'll do. So this is kind of closer to what we run a lot of times. So that's kind of what our setup looks like. And I'll have the double healer in my group with an AoE and a group healer, and then we'll have two more AoE healers just kind of in there, the roam / harass team. But that way we still have enough front line. So this right here, if we have this setup, that gives us 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 front line right here. And then we have, these groups have another 6, right? So that's 21 front line. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, so 10 support. And then DPS, we have, I think we're going to switch this to something more like this. So we'll have 4, 5, 6, 7 DPS. And then we have 9 plus 3, so that's 12 healers. So we have 7 DPS, 12 healers, 10 support, 21 frontline. That's, you can even cut some of the frontline down to like maybe 18, and then buff up this to 10. And then you'll have a pretty stout frontline. So what I would do in that case is make this kill team, but I'll kind of go over what every role does. So you have your point tank team. The point tank team sits on point. That's their job. Stay alive on point forever. Kill whoever's on point. Don't leave. You leave gate. You respawn, or you spawn in. You go to point. You kill everybody on it. You sit there until you capture the point. That's your entire job. Main ball is the people that, so you have your point team. So say there's, your shield is your point team. They're living on point. Your main ball is this circle. So your main ball is the team that goes and fights. Where's the enemy? The enemy will be the happy face, right? So they're fighting, or so your main ball is either going to be posting up outside of point, usually either on one side. I'll get into strategy later, but your main ball is the big death ball that you'll see, the big Zerg, right? It's your Zerg players. They all try to stick together, and they'll either clump on one side and then they'll rotate around point, or they will split and you'll have two, and then you have main ball fighting on both sides of point, while point tank is sitting on point, and then you have your back line kind of just roaming around wherever, right? Wherever there's safety. So usually you can get it set up like this, but then what they're going to do is they're going to have a kill team come back here and kill you. But I'll get into strategy later. Your main ball, what I like to do is have my main ball just kind of stick together. It's easier to herd sheep when all of the sheep are in the same area, right? So I just have the main ball stick to one area and then kind of circle around and call out clumps. So like if we see that there's a big clump here, I'll just say, hey, look to front of point, and then the main ball will go up and kill that clump, right? And then another clump forms over here, then they go over here and gobble gobble. They keep eating these little circles as they pop up, right? So while tank stays on point. So that's main ball. That you want them to stay as a Zerg as much as possible. That's why they have the most groups, right? You can have usually you'll have anywhere from about 4 at minimum, 4 main ball groups to up to 9. I rerun usually about 7, like 4 to 7 main ball groups. But yeah, the minimum would be 4, maximum would be 9. But that's kind of pretty much it. It's pretty standard right now to run an army similar to this. You'll see a lot of times you'll see two of these groups, in which case you would add another DPS over here because you moved one of your AoE healers to another point group. So yeah, then you have your main ball. Your main ball is either going to be one of 2 different types of groups. It's going to be 2 bruisers, and like this one is 2 bruisers, 2 ice gauntlet void gauntlets. This can be that can be ice gauntlet, void gauntlet, or blunderbuss. And then a lot of times what you're seeing now is you'll have these varying groups. Like you'll have 3 groups in your main ball that are more focused on DPS. And you'll have, now what you're seeing is instead of all Great Axe Warhammers, you're seeing one of them have a Great Sword Warhammer. So you'll have Great Axe Warhammer, and then Great Sword Warhammer, and then Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet with a group healer. So that's your traditional main ball group. And then your more CC-oriented main ball group with some burst damage would be 2 Great Axe Warhammers with an Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet, and then either another Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet, or a blunderbuss. Right now, I would probably prefer this setup with a Void Gauntlet or Ice Gauntlet plus blunderbuss. That's like the exact setup I would run. That way you have enough frontline. So you still have your 21 bruisers, 9 support, 8 DPS, 12 healers. That's pretty much what all of our wars look like. It's nothing new. It's nothing special. What's really important is who you get into these positions and what you're using. You're seeing a lot more of these great swords, and then what you're seeing a lot now is you'll see here you'll see a great sword plus. You'll see a lot of these groups as kill teams now. You'll have like a light bruiser with straight up 3 great swords, or 2 great swords and a blunderbuss. So that'll put you at 4 blunderbuss with 2 great swords, a light bruiser, and this is usually like a hatchet, and then this one's usually a great sword warhammer or sword and shield. Anything with CC. This one's basically pure DPS. This one's anything with that great sword plus CC. This one is Great Axe Warhammer for building clumps of healers and getting shit killed quickly. All of these guys are in light. And that brings me to your kill team, right? So your kill team's job is I'll get rid of this. So you have your main ball, your kill team, and say that their healers are back here. Your kill team, I'll do as the bows, little bow icon, is here to kill these guys, right? So say you're fighting for B, you have your point team on point, your main ball is killing their main ball, and then you have a kill team that wraps around here and tries to kill their healers. Once they kill their healers, they can, if they're in those light melee guys, once they wipe their backline, if their backline is clear, and they don't have any healers to kill, what they could do is they could also help wipe point, and then they get the hell out. Right? They go to like the edge of point, kill everybody on the edge of point, and then get out. But usually they're going to be roaming around in a big circle, killing all of their healers. So like say they killed all those healers, and they got to come over here, kill these healers under the bunker, then they come over here, maybe help peel for your backline, and then kill the healers with the main ball. So they're basically, their entire job is to kill healers, kill Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet players, and kill any Fire Staff users they see. Anybody in light armor, their job is to kill them. And then you have a harass team, which is either a harass or roam team. So there's kind of two setups. So say you have this setup with the extra bruisers, then you're going to want to add an extra AoE healer to your roam/harass team. And these are kind of the people that you don't really need to tell what to do, right? What I would prefer, and what I've been seeing work a lot lately, is like some kind of AoE DPS. So it would either be a bow or Fire Staff plus Blunderbuss, just for huge pad damage. And this would be like the only person in the war that plays that. So either a bow, another bow, a musket, or Fire Staff Blunderbuss, depends on what you want, and then you have your bow or muskets. For attacking wars, I like bows better. But we have really good muskets, so what we do is this. We run something similar to this on attacking wars. And then on defensive wars, we run something like this. So on defensive wars, we have 3 muskets, 2 AoE healers. And what they do is these guys just kill healers. Like, this is a kill group, this is a kill group. These 3 people work in as a team, and they just call targets and just murder those healers. These AoE healers just kind of do their own thing and put heals onto point and into the clumps, right? They make sure that nobody dies on point. On attack, we bow, musket, and then we have 2 of those. It's usually, since we have really good muskets, what we'll do is musket slash that. We have one person that will usually play musket, and then we'll have our or if they can't make it, we'll have our bow player. And then we'll have 2 muskets. If the muskets can't play, then we'll have our Fire Staff Blunderbuss come in to lay down some AoE damage and pad. We might just get rid of that pad altogether, but we're still testing stuff out. And this has kind of changed already, but this is your basic setup, right? So when you're rostering, and this video has kind of gone on already a little bit longer than I'd like, but when you're rostering, I would just try to stick to something like this. Remember to put the best players that you can into positions that will be successful. Make sure to have enough front line. So realistically, you don't want to drop anything under 18. So say you had a team that was similar to this. So what a lot of people will do, especially if they have a lot of people that work really well in light, a lot of really good light players, what they'll do is they'll kind of double up on this. And this will be a crash team. A crash slash peel, what I call a crash or peel team. And that's usually found in like the East Coast. It's like a flex slash peel. These guys can break off and go. Usually you'd want 2 light bruisers in that. So you see this a lot more on the East Coast, where you have 2 to 3 point tank groups. You have 4 main ball, and then you have a flex peel team, a kill team, and a harass team. So on defensive wars, we have 3 muskets, 2 AoE healers. And what they do is these guys just kill healers. Like, this is a kill group, this is a kill group. These 3 people work in as a team, and they just call targets and just murder those healers. These AoE healers just kind of do their own thing and put heals onto point and into the clumps, right? They make sure that nobody dies on point. On attack, we bow, musket, and then we have two of those. It's usually, since we have really good muskets, what we'll do is musket slash that. We have one person that will usually play musket, and then we'll have our or if they can't make it, we'll have our bow player, and then we'll have two muskets. If the muskets can't play, then we'll have our fire staff blunderbuss come in to lay down some AoE damage and pad. We might just get rid of that pad altogether, but we're still testing stuff out. And this has kind of changed already, but this is your basic setup, right? So when you're rostering, and this video has kind of gone on already a little bit longer than I'd like, but when you're rostering, I would just try to stick to something like this. Remember to put the best players that you can into positions that will be successful. Make sure to have enough front line. So realistically, you don't want to drop anything under 18. So say you had a team that was similar to this. So what a lot of people will do, if they especially if they have a lot of people that work really well as a in light, a lot of really good light players, what they'll do is they'll kind of double up on this, and this will be a crash team, a crash slash peel, what I call a crash or peel team, and that's usually found in like the East Coast. It's like a flex slash peel. These guys can break off and go. Well, I didn't go into this in the video when I was recording it, but what the peel team does, or the flex team, their main job is to protect your healers. So if they have a kill team and they're built similar to the way you are, if they have a kill team of melee DPS going into your backline and killing your healers, what you're going to want to do is add a peel team that has two bruisers and a melee DPS and either a blunderbuss or a void gauntlet if you want the extra CC. And what this team can do is act as a high DPS crash team as well. So if your backline is clear and you need assistance on point, they could crash onto point, put down a whole bunch of DPS, and then get the hell out of there. And if you need more assistance or more DPS and you're trying to do like a split push, which I'll get into in the strategies video, you can send those guys off to go help capture another point. So you could pressure 2 points off at the same time. And if they're under too much pressure, they could just roll out of there and get back to the point as quickly as possible, or roll out of danger and just kind of lead the enemy team off and distract them on a separate point. And they'll still be able to function like an actual team, they're just built for higher damage. But yeah, that's basically it for the peel team and crash team. So you see this a lot more on the East Coast, where you have 2 to 3 point tank groups. You have 4 main ball, and then you have a flex peel team, a kill team, and a harass team. And then in West Coast, it's more main ball. And then one kill team, and then the harass team, which would be more like this, kind of like what we're running. That's really the only difference between the East Coast and this is NA, North America. So the main difference is that they'll add like a peel team, which can also help crash, and it'll be, right now it looks more like this, where it's 2 melee DPS, 2 bruisers, and then the kill team will be 1 light bruiser and then 3 DPS, and then they'll have bows and muskets, and then AoE DPS or like a blunderbuss on their harass team, with a splash healer, and their AoE healers are put into their point groups. This is even changing a little bit. We're seeing like 2 point groups with 3 main balls, so there's kind of a mix going on between West Coast and EU. and then the West Coast is starting to use a little bit more of the peel team. Ours is kind of a mix because we go 1 point group, um, and I think we're gonna start using this peel slash crash team idea. We have in the past. This was what we used to do and found a lot of success with. Um, and we'd have this roam harass team so we could have our AoE healers up, right? So it really depends. If you're in EU, everything is basically, it's like they don't even use kill teams as much from what I understand. It's all just bruisers, super bruiser heavy, and then Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet. Um, and I think since they have really good bruisers, and their healers play with the main ball, like really close together. They just, this whole army works as a group. And I think they don't even have that healer, I'm not sure. Because they have really good healers on EU. And they just kind of do this for defense specifically. I'm not too sure what they do on attack. I think it kind of looks more like this. But yeah, it seems like they just run a bunch of main ball with some point, and they don't even worry about a kill team because their healers play so close to the main ball that you'd literally have to fight their bruisers to get to their healers because they peel a lot better. It's all pretty similar, so it doesn't really matter where you're playing. You could run any of these styles of roster, and they'll all have some success. And what really it comes down to is the skill level of your players and how they cooperate as a team. The biggest things that you can work on is communication. It is comms management. So I'm talking about you need to have a good shot caller, but the shot caller is only like 25% of the war. I would say shot calling is 25% of the war, and then you have your microcoms. So how these individual groups are talking amongst themselves. So if your bruisers in your main ball aren't calling their gravity wells and shockwaves, and your healers aren't calling their sacred grounds, and your Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlets aren't calling their screams and their ice walls, it's going to be really disorganized. And if you don't have people who can kind of lead, so like what we do is we have one of these bruisers is the group lead, right? So we have our group lead, and that would be across all of these groups, right? So each group has a lead, and they're the ones making their own shot calls in a separate call. So if you're using Discord, you could use a second Discord through Discord Canary and have everybody join their own 5-man little micro calls and make all the calls. And if these guys are good, if these group leads are good, this is like the most important thing to have, is good group leaders, and have them in a place to where they can be successful. If these guys are making good calls for the rest of their group, and the healers are telling the bruisers where the sacred grounds are, and when they're casting their divine embrace, and you have these good calls, your group is going to perform a lot better. And if this group is performing a lot better, they're going to know to go. If this group is in trouble, they're going to be able to wipe wherever they're at, kill that other team, and then move on to help this team. And now you have a group of 10 that can go help this team, and now it snowballs, right? So this group wins their fight, which leads to this group leading their fight, which leads to the rest of these main ball groups winning their fight, and then you collapse on point, and you take that point, right? That's kind of how it works. And if you have good roster composition with enough frontline support, DPS, and healers, and your groups are all making really good micro calls, then the shot caller is just kind of directing traffic. They're just saying, look here, because they're not going to be able to see, like, oh, if they're fighting on bonfire, they're not going to be able to look at the other side of the point and see that there's a huge clump going on. That's all the shot caller's really doing, right? They're keeping the army hyped. They are directing traffic, But the people that are putting in the most work is actually these guys. And if you have your team set up properly, your group leads are making really good calls. Your follow-up bruisers are making good calls. If these 5-man microcoms are going well, and you have it kind of set up like this, where you have everybody in one call. So whether it be Discord, everybody's in the same Discord. They can all hear the main shot caller, and then they're also at the same time simultaneously in a secondary Discord channel with just their 5 groups or their 5-man group, and they are listening to the calls from their 5-man. Then you're going to do pretty well. The biggest thing is communication. So if shot calling is 25%, you need to have a good, traffic controller. If rostering's another 25%, comms are another, I would say, 25%. Like the micro calls are another 25%. And the strategy isn't really that. It's not like you might catch somebody with a sneaky, crazy strategy once, maybe twice, but the strategy isn't nearly as important as having good players. So the last 25% is kind of split between, actually more than that, 25%, straight up like 24% of it is individual skill level of your players, and then like 1% of it is like the strategy that you make, right? The strategy that you make isn't really going to be a huge defining factor if you don't have the other things in a row, right? If your roster isn't set up correctly, if you don't have players that have good skill, if you don't have good microcoms, you're just not going to win. No matter if you have the best strategy in the world, if you don't have those other 4 things, you're going to fail, right? So if you break it up, it's not like a 20-20. If it's all 5 of those things that make go into a war, it's not 20-20, 20% split 5 ways. It's more of like 25-25, 20-20 and 10% strategy. So don't spend too much time on the strategy. I'm going to make a video on that. There's really easy strategies that just work and are known to work. If you have the roster, if you have the players in place, if your players have good microcoms, and you just have a similar 50-man roster of equal strength, you're going to put up a good fight. If you don't have a good roster, you don't have enough frontline, you don't have enough healers, the individual skill level is lacking, so you just kind of get skill gapped. No amount of strategy or prior planning is going to help you. So go watch the strategy video after this. I'm going to make it. If it's not up yet, I'm trying to make it tonight, so it should be up in the next day or two, or a day or two following this video. But this is basically it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. If you want me to make like a follow-up video with some more in-depth information, I'll try to do that. I try to get as much of this as possible. But yeah, frontline's super important because without them, your healers and your support, your DPS and your healers all die. Support's important because if you don't have enough people to box people out with Ice Shower or CC chain people with Scream and put Plague down and remove debuffs with Nullifying Oblivion, if you don't have all that stuff, your bruisers are going to lose that fight. So without the front line and the support, everybody dies. Without the support, your front line has a higher likelihood of death. If you don't have enough healers that are good, you're just going to die. Everybody's dead. If you don't have good healers and you don't have enough of them, your entire army falls apart. Which is why the front line and the healers are the 2 most important aspect. If you get these 2 set up, your DPS and support can be a little bit subpar, but you're going to still do well if you have a good front line and good healers. So put priority on those. If you have bad DPS in your kill team and your roam/harass team, it's not the end of the world, but a good, especially musket team, if you're in a defensive war and you have a good musket team, that musket team can change the entire tide of the war because they'll just murder healers on repeat. But usually DPS isn't nearly as important as having good frontline. Yeah, it's a 50-man roster. And as long as you do it if you do it properly, and if you put the people in positions to win, you'll and just keep practicing. Don't give up after one or two losses. Just keep doing it. Keep grinding. You'll get there. You know, it took us a few wars. I mean, I think we won our second war, but that was a long, long, long time ago. Our first server was relatively easy. When we got to Yig, we lost like 20 wars in a row, right? We started on Ptolemaeus, then we went to Yig, we lost like 20 wars in a row, and then we won Windsword, right? So, and then we won Reekwater with our practice team, you know, and then when Black Wolves got over there, we won our first defense against them, which was like an East Coast company that was doing pretty well. And we held out for a little bit over there against the competition that was quite frankly better than us. Um, but we did this by learning this type of strategy. I went back and watched a lot of VODs, and I did a lot of work to figure out how are they slotting, how many bruisers do they have, how many healers, how many ice gauntlets do they have, like do they have a kill team, a crash team, yada yada yada. But there's not a lot of people that are willing to share this information. I think Micro is the only other person that I've seen that even touches on this. So I kind of wanted to make a similar video because we are coming to a time where more people are going to get into wars, and this is kind of how we do things. You know, we're not the best. I'm not the best person. I'm not the best shot caller. I'm not the best bruiser. I'm not the best anything. But from what I see, and I've shot called over 100 wars. I won about 100 wars, and that's just on my main character. I don't have 4 accounts. I have 2. I have 1 account but 2 characters. I have an alt on a fresh start that I just got to level 60, and then I have my main character. I've shot called about 100 wars, I've shot called over 100 wars. I've won about 100 wars, and this is what I've learned. But yeah, that's about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm closing in on 200. I want to get to that 1,000 mark so I can start getting monetized, so I can get some support going, make more videos, and spend more time making more in-depth videos. Right now I'm just kind of doing it in my free time. But yeah, if you like and subscribe, it goes a long way.